So folks, I've had a comment about where's the next episode, and we've had a little bit of a break because we're working on a particularly big episode, or at least we tried to be particularly professional with the next episode. It's called Conspiracy, so we will be looking at conspiracy theories and actually what the word conspiracy means, and to what extent perhaps we use it as a label to shut the lid on contrary views that we don't like and we don't want to eyeball, that might even make us a little bit uncomfortable. So that's the next episode coming up. We're now on the back straight in terms of the series itself. I have got a bunch more interviews. The final few episodes will be the return from Stockholm down to Karlskrona and then across to Gdynia, and the final episode on the conclusions and my findings in relation to the mysterious affair of Covid-19 will be dealt with in a denouement from Warsaw, where I'm recording this vlog to you today. We've got an interesting sprinkling of experts in the Homewood leg. They include Karol Sikora, who is a very eminent cancer doctor, and I met with him at the Royal Society of Medicine in London and had an extremely interesting conversation with him about the impact of lockdowns on the health service, and particularly in relation to cancer. I'm also will be talking to Dr. Tenpenny, who is a very prominent doctor from the United States, who I'm very privileged to get her on the channel, who will be talking about the dangers of vaccines. I don't have particularly strong views about vaccines, but it's very interesting to talk to a doctor, so that was quite an interesting conversation too. So we've got the sprinkling of experts as well as the traditional folks in the street who I have approached, including a really brilliant, bubbly, vivacious, determined and courageous lady who runs an art gallery in Kristianstad in Sweden, and has been in the teeth of adversity keeping her gallery open. So stay tuned, strap yourself in for the return journey at the voyage back to Poland. I'm also going to be threading through the series the issue of the psychology behind all of this, because I think, and this is one of the reasons that the series has taken on perhaps a bigger shape than was originally envisaged, is the way that we as human beings tend to form a kind of a group view that then actually becomes very difficult to dislodge. People become very, welded to their point of view, and even in the face of possible contradictory evidence, will not retreat from their position. And I think that's a real significance as far as this crisis is concerned. And a word that I've never really understood, but I've been drilling into, that was first raised by a psychologist back in the 50s when he studied a end-of-world cult, is the issue of cognitive dissonance. What is cognitive dissonance, and to what extent does it apply to the public opinions that are being held in relation to the coronavirus crisis? I think it's really important during this series, and I make no apologies for it, to put a contrary view. Obviously, I'm a little bit of a lockdown skeptic. I hope that I haven't blinded myself to, canvassing other people's views. All the interviews during the course of these series were just people I approached pretty much spontaneously for an interview. Some of them had one view, others had another. I mean, it was Sweden, but I've also interviewed people in Poland and London as well. So I think it's very important, and this is sort of chimes with the legal perspective of this series, of putting a contrary view. And I think the big problem with the current controversy is that really there's airtime and respect of contrary views has not been allowed. That's something I feel very strongly about. And indeed, that's the hallmark of a successful legal system, arguably the hallmark of successful government. Like Parliament is divided into two separate sides. so that through contradictory opinions being debated in open air, in the crucible of that forum, whether it's a courtroom or whether it's a House of Parliament, the truth can emerge, the knowledge can emerge that can help us to make the right decisions at a government level, or indeed when it comes to a trial. I think I'm kind of in good company in putting a minority view. You only have to look at heavyweights such as Galileo, who was labelled a heretic and put under house imprisonment for life for pointing out that the Earth actually revolves around the Sun, not the other way round. The prevailing majority view then, the prevailing wisdom then, the pseudoscience then was that everything revolved around the Earth. Socrates is obviously a very notable example of someone who actually ended up being put to death because people didn't like his views. And then, of course, I've alluded during the series to Thucydides, basically the first proper, serious historian of the Western world. And the way he points out he points a finger at the deficiencies of democracy, and I think that's a very real and live issue in relation to the Covid-19 pandemic, as well as lining up the suspects. I'm going to, now you may think, well, Mr. Woods, you're lining up suspects, that presumes that a crime has been committed. Well, the first suspect up will be the COVID-2 virus itself. So I will then be going on to look at, politicians, the doctors, business, etc., and just trying to drill into the evidence and just to arrive ultimately at some conclusion, some answers to this mysterious affair of COVID-19. Mysterious, for my money, because of what I perceive to be a hugely exaggerated response to the level of the actual threat itself. I close by alluding to what's happening in Australia. A population of 25 million people, only about 500 people have died from a disease where the average age is 80, and those who do die have underlying medical conditions, and where proportionate and more targeted, focused steps to save the elderly in care homes might be the better approach. While unfortunately in Australia, where I believe that the whole issue has been incredibly politicised, and I can't help but think that politicians, have really rather enjoyed the opportunity to grandstand on the political stage as a result of this crisis. In Australia, you've got drones flying around Melbourne, watching people who are not wearing face masks and finding them up to whatever it is, $10,000 if they don't, with curfews from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. each morning, with a kind of seems to me a bizarre system of stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and they're now in a stage 4 crisis situation, almost as if they were fighting the Second World War or there'd been an alien invasion itself. Stay tuned. I hope you enjoy the rest of the series, as well as insights. I hope it will just encourage you to think for yourself and not just simply be blindly compliant and sheep-like in following a general public view just because it's rather inconvenient and painful to stand out and stand up for what you kind of deep down think is the truth of the matter. Okay guys, enjoy the rest of the series, and as I say, it'll probably be within the next week that Conspiracy episode 12 of A Lawyer Investigates will be released.